We are back for 2021 edition of One True Podcast. On my screen, he's there. He's probably over here. That's usually how this thing works. But John Werner, good to see you again, Johnny.
Thank you, Bryce. Good to be back.
And our special guest, a familiar face to us, and he's looking very well groomed, is our friend Jason Orts, former Tribber, now with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And the reason we brought Jorts on is because both him and you, John, are Texas State alums. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I was there when it was Southwest Texas. Jason was there for both versions.
I was. I spanned the gap on that one. I took a couple of victory laps in college just to make sure I'd graduate from Texas State.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like they had a variety of different names over the years, for sure. So,
well, we did have a president graduate from our school.
Who was that?
LBJ.
Nice.
The only one in Texas.
Little
the only
trivia
University
there
of Texas
for
that can
you.
say that.
Yeah, a little trivia.
It was probably Texas State, Southwest Texas State Teachers College back then, I think.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always just knew it as the party school.
Hey, I worked my butt off, Bryce.
Oh,
pretty good at
sure. Well, let's get into it. So Baylor does make its first ever trip to San Marcos to play Texas State on Saturday. So before we get into the X's and O's and the breakdown of this matchup, as I mentioned, both of you guys did attend and graduate Texas State. And you've also, I think together, correct, been to games down there in recent years?
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Yeah. So what does the game day atmosphere look like at Bobcat Stadium? And, how does it compare to your days there when you guys were running around as students? Different eras.
Well, I think the tailgating is the biggest difference when you go look around. I mean, the tailgating it's wild. It's crazy, and it was almost non-existent when I was in school there. And, I think you have to remember that when John and I both went to school there, it was only a 15,000 seat stadium. It was just, it was basically a high school stadium that they played in. John, I believe they were Division II when John was there, the 1AA when I was there. So the stadium expansion happened, I think, in 2013. And, for certain games, I've been there when they played Texas Tech, when they played Navy, when they played Houston a few years ago. And it's a wild college football atmosphere. For most other games, it's the standard 12 to 15,000 fans, but you're spreading them out into a 30,000 seat stadium. And really the game day atmosphere isn't that great, but I would expect it to be pretty packed this Saturday.
Well, actually, I predated Division II. It was NAIA when I was there.
Oh, wow.
That was 42 years ago.
Wow.
This is pre-Jim Wacker there, before he got there.
So you're dating yourself.
Yes, I'm very old. I think I went to school with LBJ. I'm not sure. I know I was there at school at the same time as George Strait, though.
Oh, cool. That's pretty cool.
There you go.
That was cool. But our football teams weren't very good back then. And there weren't a whole lot of fans at the stadium.
So it's changed a lot, basically, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
So both of these teams are coming off, 2-win seasons. Texas State did end up playing 3 more games than Baylor did last year. But neither of them had, highly successful seasons. Let's just put it like that. Given the fact that Baylor is breaking in a new starting quarterback in Gary Bohannon, a new offensive scheme under Jeff Grimes, the fact that they're going on the road for their opener, which they haven't done very often in recent years, does that give the Bobcats a reasonable shot to win this game? What do you think? How do you guys see this one playing out?
Go ahead, John.
I don't think so. I think Baylor has a really good defense returning. Almost every starter's back. They're adding Apu Ika, who's going to really be a force at nose guard. Texas State has a really good quarterback back in Brady McBride. He might give them some trouble, but I think it's going to be a big transition for Texas State because they got so many transfers in. I think they have like 18 in this year or something like that. So, yeah, Baylor's 13.5-point favorite. I'll probably pick them to cover.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to say just because of what John mentioned there with Texas State having so many transfers. Transfers are kind of known as a mixed bag. You get some great ones, you get some that just they don't fall in line for whatever reason, they don't work out. So I think Texas State's really a total wild card in that way. And you talk about Brady McBride, the quarterback. I kind of call him when I'm being nice, I call him a very poor man's Johnny Manziel. When I'm being mean, I just call him a total idiot. He's one of those guys. He wants to make every play a big play, and I think in that regard, he's kind of the most dangerous player on the field for both teams when he's out there, because he can make some huge plays. And Texas State lost a couple of guys from last year, but they've got a receiving core that can really go get the ball. Isaiah Barbie is still there, and he's one of the top receivers coming back, I believe, in the Sun Belt. And Texas State, the 2 wins, you can look at 2-10, obviously not a very good record, but this was a much more competitive football team last year than it had been the year before. Lost by 7 to SMU, lost by 2 in a absolutely heartbreaking triple overtime game against, or lost by 3 against UTSA. They lost by 3 against Boston College, and had Boston College beat, it was 21-7 with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So, I don't think Texas State's going to be intimidated by Baylor coming in at all. But I think, just overall talent and just depth and, everything else, I think Texas State will get worn down probably a little bit in the fourth quarter. And I think Baylor will come out with a win. The public is really big on Baylor in this game. Johnny mentioned a 13.5-point favorite. That Baylor is, I've seen it as high as 14, and it started at 10.5. So that's a big move in just a few days. So the public is really big on Baylor. Now, I always say in that case, you want to fade the public because the hotels out there in Vegas weren't built on winners. But at the same time, I think there's a good reason for Baylor to be, a good 2-touchdown favorite.
We get that Vegas insight from Jason here.
Yeah.
He did live with the gambling guru out there in Vegas, and Jim Barnes, our former sports editor, Johnny.
Oh yeah, I mean that was good insight. That Baylor's gained 3 points.
Yeah,
just in a few days.
Yeah, they usually open the lines. I guess they probably opened the lines a little bit earlier for the opener, so it might have been over the span of a couple weeks. But it's been a pretty steady movement in Baylor's direction.
All right, I'll be consulting you when I do my picks.
I tend to agree with you guys on this game. I think Baylor wins it. What the score is, I don't know. Thankfully, we don't have to pick the score anymore. But
I do in my column.
You do. But I think, John and I have talked about it. I think Baylor needs to win its first 3 games against Texas State, Texas Southern, and Kansas. All of those are winnable games, and they probably should win. I look at this Baylor bunch as, kind of following a similar trajectory as the Matt Rule era, when they were terrible that first year. Second year, much more respectable. They get in the bowl game, and the schedule, like that second year under Matt Rule, breaks in Baylor's favor this year. They get all the tougher teams kind of here in Waco. And then, that third year is when they made a real big jump, made the Sugar Bowl under Matt Rule. So can they follow that trajectory under Dave-Aranda? We'll see. Obviously, Matt Rule didn't have a pandemic to navigate as well. So, just elsewhere in the Big 12, we've got an actual top 25 game that actually sort of jumped out at me when I was looking at the schedule, because I didn't know that Louisiana was ranked. But we've got number 21 Texas hosting number 23 Louisiana. Now, every year the Longhorns start out the season ranked in the top 25. Pretty much every year they lose some game that they're not supposed to lose. They drop out. I've always said that they're the most perpetually overrated team in college football. And here we go again. So does that mean they lose this one to the Ragin Cajuns? What do you guys think?
You know, it's really hard to say on this one too. You know, I think a new era at Texas with a new coach. It is a very good Louisiana team coming in there. I think there's no doubt about that. It's a team that, you know, made big strides last year and, you know, was a force in the Sun Belt Conference, obviously. I believe it was them that went on the road and beat Iowa State.
Yeah,
Iowa State to beat Iowa State to open last year. So again, not going to be intimidated by a big environment going into a game against Texas like that. You know, I think there's a lot of things that we just don't know about Texas at this point. You know, what is Sarkisian's offense going to look like? I think with, you know, are they going to feature Bijou Robinson a little bit more? Are they going to rely on, I believe it's Hudson Card, the quarterback who won the job there? Are they going to kind of throw him out there to the Wolves and just kind of see what he can do early? You know, I tend to favor Texas in a game like this just because they are at home. You know, they are the bigger, more well-known team, and you know, with a new coach, and I think they're going to have a new energy coming out in that first game. But you know, this is a much tougher opener than Texas was probably hoping for when they scheduled this game.
Do you think if they lost that game, they might just go ahead and fire Sark and bring Matt Brown back?
What, probably the guy that they should have never gotten rid of?
Right.
Yeah. Shoot. They certainly do have a lot of turnover at Texas, no question.
Yes, they have.
You know, going back to my Vegas thing, I will say that you know, this game has changed dramatically. You know, I talked about a 3-point swing in the Texas State and Baylor game. This one, Texas opened at 16.5, and it's down to 8.
Holy moly.
I mean, it's been cut in half.
Wow.
So that to me is incredible. I think obviously the public is very much on Louisiana in this game. And I mean, again, you just don't know what you're going to get from Texas. You know, I think Louisiana's defense is going to be pretty tough, but you know, Texas's talent, I mean, it should be through the roof. It should be off the charts. I mean, Sarkisian should be just dialing up plays for not Alabama level talent like he had, you know, the past couple of years, but not too far from it. So I just think, again, this is another game where, you know, in the second half, talent wins. You know, all the game planning kind of not goes out the window, but, you know, I think in the second half of games, talent wins out. And I think Texas will win. But I mean, seeing it go from 16 to 8 or 16.5 to 8, that gives you some pause a little bit there for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty good game. You know, like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty around Texas, a new coach. Louisiana probably will not be intimidated. I mean, to go up there and beat Iowa State's a pretty big deal. So, and that was a really good team last year. So yeah, I think it could be a pretty good game.
So speaking of Sark, I mean, do you guys think Steve Sarkisian is the guy to you know, take Texas back to national prominence? And you know, the second part of that question, what do you feel like awaits Texas and Oklahoma when they travel to these Big 12 stadiums this fall? Johnny, what do you think?
Well, I'm hoping that that COVID won't limit attendance, because I want to see the fans' reaction at every stadium.
Maybe a little bit of lusty booze out there, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty brutal for both of them, especially Texas. I think a lot of Texas schools, well, probably everybody in the Big 12 took it personally, but I'd say especially the Texas schools concerning the Longhorns. But yeah, I don't know if Sark's the answer or not. He's been pretty mediocre in his head coaching stints. Obviously did a great job at Alabama, but man, they had a ton of talent there too. So we'll see. I think he's kind of unproven as a wild coach. I mean, as a head coach, I just don't think he's done that well.
Yeah, I think the hard part, or the hardest part that he's going to have down there is that you can't just be a football coach at Texas. You have to be part head football coach and part politician. You know, all the boosters and everything down there, you know, as much as people probably won't like me saying this, they kind of run the program down there in a lot of ways. And, you know, I think that's part of the reason Mac Brown was so successful, was that he was really good at, you know, glad handing and, you know, making sure that everybody felt like they were important and all that. And some of the guys that they brought in since then, they just wanted to be a football coach. You know, and Sarkisian, you know, you hate to bring up his personal demons and his past, but, you know, he's had issues with alcohol in the past. And, you know, I don't know, you know, I hope for his sake that he's past all that. But, you know, this seems like the type of position that's going to be a very high stress, you know, type of position. And I don't know if he is the right guy for the job. I don't know if he has the personality. I mean, obviously winning cures everything. So, you know, if he comes out and he has a 10-2, 11-1 type regular season, you know, I think all bets are out the door. And I think maybe they'll kind of back off him a little bit and kind of let him do what he wants to do. But I do think it's going to be really important for him to win some games and win some big games early.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point on the politics aspect of the Texas head coaching position. And maybe that just means that Texas, the state, needs to bring back Mac Brown as you know, like a governor candidate or something, you know. I mean, the guy was popular, you know, he might be able to mend some fences and stuff. Who knows? So let's do a quick little run and shoot of these other, you know, kind of key, interesting games here, week 1 of the Big 12. So John, I want you to give me your take on Stanford and K-State. You know, Power 5 game there.
Yeah.
Jason, you tackled Texas Tech and Houston. So Johnny, K-State, Stanford, how do you see that one?
Yeah, I probably like Stanford in a close game. They only played 6 games last year. They lost their first 2, but then they won their last 4. And they've got some, you know, pretty good amount of guys back. K-State, they were kind of an up and down team. They were 4-6 last year. That was one of Baylor's 2 wins too. So I think they still are kind of rebuilding a little bit under Chris Kleiman. I think Stanford is going to be a little better early. So I think I'll take the Cardinal there.
And Jason, what do you think on the Red Raiders and the Cougs?
You know, I think these are 2 teams that really need wins, especially these 2 coaches. I think, you know, Dana Holgorsen going from West Virginia to Houston, I think a lot of people had high expectations that he was going to be, you know, able to kind of keep that program rolling. It wasn't even really a rebuild job at Houston so much as just kind of keep things rolling. They were 3-5 last year, only played 8 games. Texas Tech 4-6 last year under Matt Wells. And I don't know how exactly hot the seat is there, but I know that, you know, I think the natives are getting a little bit restless in Lubbock. You know, our buddy Chad Conine could tell us a whole lot more about what's going on in Lubbock. He could probably do a whole lot better, you know, preview of this game than I could. But, you know, let's go back to Vegas here. It's a 6.5-point favorite. Tech is a 6.5-point favorite. It is on the road, but it's not at Houston. It's at NRG Stadium. So I don't think you'll have that on-campus atmosphere that you would normally have for a game like this. So I do like Tech going down there. Again, you know, something about Big 12 depth and talent and just, you know, just maybe being a little bit better than a group of 5 team early in the season.
And so that brings us kind of to our little final segment. We always like to close it with a little, you know, we're sports writers. We like to talk about food. And so Jason, Johnny's taken me to a place called Herbert's, which, you know, I feel like it should be Jose's or Julio's or something like that. That doesn't sound like a Mexican place to me, but I don't know Herbert's last name. Maybe it's Rodriguez or something like that. He says it's really good. So where else, you know, where else is good in San Marcos? And do you give that Herbert's a thumbs up?
I give it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of my favorites when I go down there as well. Get the regular dinner. You won't be disappointed.
Okay.
No, it's definitely one of my favorites. Just good old school, you know, Tex-Mex style Mexican food. And I know you guys are a big fan of that, so I think you're going to enjoy yourself there.
Jason, you introduced me to Herbert's.
I did?
Yes, you did.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I feel honored because I mean, it's definitely one of my favorite places. I'm glad that now you're passing on the tradition.
Oh, yeah.
So, no, obviously I'm a huge fan of the tap room. It's a kind of a bar, but I kind of call it a family friendly bar where there's, there's always a lot of, family. I guess there's a lot of families in there, especially early in the day. They've got some of the best burgers I've ever had in my life there. They got one called the Pounder because it is a 1 pound burger.
Wow.
And I have taken that thing down many times, and
Man.
it's always a fun challenge when I go down there. It's a lot harder now than it was when I was in college for some reason. I don't know why that is. But there's another place called Grins that has a great patio, great atmosphere, good food there as well. And Johnny, I'll let you tell them about Gil's Broiler.
Yes, that's where the Mansky roll was invented.
The Mansky roll.
Yeah, it's a big cinnamon roll.
Ooh.
It'd be the best one you ever ate.
Wow, I've had some good cinnamon rolls, Johnny. We've had good cinnamon rolls at Stroud's in KC. I've had the Frontier roll in Albuquerque. That's pretty dadgum good too.
Well, now I don't quite know the story, but the guy who runs the Frontier, I believe he's related to the guy in San Marcos.
That's a nice little nugget. That's pretty good. We may need to get us some cinnamon rolls on Saturday too.
Now that place is tremendous. It's really, those are the best cinnamon rolls I've had.
Yeah.
Give yourself some time to walk them off, but yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of other really nice places and good food options that have opened up since I graduated from college. I mean, it's been almost 20 years now since I was in school there. So, but I still like to go to my old standbys. Definitely Herbert's is one of them. Tap Room, Grins, Gil's Broiler. I definitely like to hit all those stops when I'm down there.
My brother lives in Fentress, Texas, which is not far from San Marcos, and Johnny is going to meet us for lunch on Saturday. He said, "Do you like coffee?" And I was like, "No." I mean, he knows I don't, but I was telling him that, in your old age, John, you've become quite the coffee connoisseur.
Yes.
It's very snooty coffee drinker. So he was telling me about some, I don't know, I'm trying to remember it now. It was like Moonlight or some kind of coffee place. So we may check that out too. But he said they have frozen lemonade for the non-coffee drinkers.
All right, we're there. We got a whole bunch of stops to make before the game. I hope we get there on time.
Let's just skip the game and eat.
I wonder what kind of shape we're going to be in for the game.
Well, it's all relative. We're sports writers.
That's true. It's expected.
All right. Well, Jason, always great to see you, talk to you
guys.
And obviously wish you a great season covering all those Las Vegas high schools, my friend.
Much appreciated. We're 2 weeks in, and it's been crazy. We've had a lot of games canceled because of COVID and that kind of stuff already. So I think at this point we're just kind of hanging on and hoping that we can get through the season.
Yeah, that's a sentiment that I think everyone can appreciate. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.
See you, Jason.